Alexville.
By the way, just showing you, right-wingers coming in my chat right now like, Caitlyn Jenner isn't a woman. This is the party that she's trying to appeal to, where 20 to 50% of her base off the bat are going to say, I think you're disgusting. Screw you for being LGBT. Again, the Republican Party is not a place for LGBT people of any stripe. Log cabin Republicans are a joke who's willing to throw the rest of their community under the bus for economic benefit of themselves. Point blank, period. There might be one or two Republicans on the local level somewhere that might be LGBTQ plus friendly. But when it comes to national level politics and much of state level, and the vast majority of state level politics, it's not. And every time I have somebody come in here when I'm covering Caitlyn Jenner's policies or her speeches or anything like that, and I see the type of vitriol from the right, from Republicans in my chat, not all of them, but at least half of the base, it sends the message intended to LGBT people. Don't align yourself with a party which seeks your destruction. It's near suicidal behavior. We're going to talk about Caitlyn Jenner. For whatever reason, Caitlyn Jenner has decided to still run for governor of California. Now, let me make clear. Caitlyn Jenner will never, in a million years, become governor of California. There is a million reasons why she will not become governor of California. The top one being that she is a Republican. The second one being that she is a Republican. And the third one being that she is a Republican. But that does not mean that she could not go across the state spreading Republican ideas and slowly build up a base to maybe in the future they'll take it. I doubt it, but who knows? Anyway, she's doing another friendly Fox News interview. I also want to say that Caitlyn Jenner has gotten a lot of backlash from a lot of conservatives. If you look at the one conservative woman, I think it was Lauren Witzel or whatever her name is, who's challenged Chris Coons in Delaware. I think she famously said to Blair White of trans conservatives that the best thing trans conservatives can do is grow out their mustache. We look at other famous gay Republicans like Milo Yiannopoulos, who's now opening a gay torture center in Florida. And Caitlyn Jenner has gotten a lot of backlash from a lot of conservatives. I believe it was Matt Walsh who said that supporting Caitlyn Jenner was basically us giving up our values and being very angry about the fact that conservatives were supporting her. What I'm trying to say is that the LGBT community, at least in the near future, probably in our lifetimes, will never have a place in the Republican Party. The Republican Party has too many power blocks within it that despise us, whether that be people like Mike Pence, whether that be the evangelical bloc, or the large homophobic donors to multiple Republican campaigns. People like to pretend that Donald Trump was a pro-LGBT president, as he did the trans military ban, and his administration went after gay adoption rights. His administration was homophobic. It picked Mike Pence, somebody who advocated for gay conversion therapy, which is torture of homosexuals, under the false pretenses that torture of gays can make them straight. That has no scientific basis whatsoever. He was advocating that publicly and had it on his website as early back as 2015, 1 year before he would walk into the White House with Donald Trump. The Republican Party is not changing anytime soon, and opposition to gay marriage, I believe, was still in the 2016 and possibly the 2020 platform. I'd have to go back and check, but most certainly opposition to LGBT issues. Then you just look at the unconstitutional laws they've been trying to pass on the state level, trying to deny access to LGBTQ plus trans youth, which of course the Supreme Court ruled unconstitutional because it is. And then of course there's the trans bathroom bills and all these sports legislation. It's a major cultural issue for them, and it's going to be that way for basically forever. I mean, look at the fact that just seeing gays on TV still makes the Republican and right-wing parties angry. Remember the Blues Clues segment, where it was just a bunch of different LGBTQ plus families walking down the street and they were singing a song, and that caused so much outrage because an alligator dared to hold a rainbow flag. I guess we're just the queers that you have to fear. Anyway, let's get into the segment. Oh, and it's completely silent. Oh.
For more on this, I want to bring in Caitlyn Jenner, Republican candidate for governor of California and the first transgender woman to run for governor. And I mention that last part because I want to get your thoughts on what's unfolding, not just in Loudoun County, but across the country with talk about transgender policies as they get ready to vote.
Well, I've been very outspoken.
Let me be clear. Caitlyn Jenner is caving on everything she believes in order to adhere to a right-wing base. Before, she was in favor of trans athletes competing in the gender that they are. Trans women competing with women and trans men competing with men. Then she decided to run for governor and did a 180, even though she's trying to compete in women's golf tournaments. The hypocrisy really has no bounds.
On that, I believe that we have to protect girls' sports in school and high school. I think that's extremely important.
Protect girls' sports. I hear this a lot. What does that mean? What are trans students going to do in these sports that are going to hurt them? What it's going to end up doing is restricting trans students from an extracurricular activity that can help their social development and can help them achieve success later down the line in said sport. A trans woman from New Zealand just recently actually got approved to go to the Olympics. This is something that should be made available to trans athletes as well, as long as they are approved. I see no problem with it. Definitely if trans women are being cleared for the Olympics, which has very high medical and physical standards. Not to mention, there's also the fact that this is really not a issue about women's sports. For years, I was hearing from conservatives about the need for us to not really pay attention to the pay that women's soccer teams are getting in comparison to men's soccer teams, or the pay that women's sports athletes are getting in compared to men's sports athletes. In fact, there was a particular disinterest from the right side of the aisle when it came to women's sports and women's sports issues. But when it could be used as a tool to isolate trans youth and trans people as the next item in the culture war agenda, I mean, it's the economy, stupid. Really is the time-honored traditional statement of Democrats, and it's right. Of course, you got to divert from that. You need to divert from the failed Trump economy that went into recession at the end of his term after he crashed a successful Obama economy, and pay attention to the bathrooms and the girls' sports in high school. Pay attention to that. Don't look at the recession that Biden now has to pull us out of, trying to get back the millions of jobs we lost. Turn back. Turn away from that. Concentrate on girls' sports in high school. Really, the number one objective of girls' sports isn't this hardcore competition type thing that is being advertised as anyway, even though I believe this can be done in that manner responsibly as well. It's sociological development and extracurricular activities, which they're trying to restrict from trans youth, in a process also otherizing them.
There is more to the issue than that. And the Olympic Committee just had the first transgender athlete that will be competing.
New Zealand.
But at the Olympic level, it's much, there's rules and regulations for trans athletes to be able to compete. At the high school level, there really isn't.
So instead of banning them, how about you propose some rules and regulations then? The problem is these rules and regulations on the high school level, I guess this might be the counter, would be could maybe prevent a lot of people from competing, when I guess, again, the whole point of high school and middle school sports is sociological development and extracurricular activities, not making an Olympic champion out of everybody who passes through high school while they're chewing on crayons and pencils and pens.
And so we need to just continue to look at that issue. Yeah.
What about critical race theory? I know that's something that you've been pretty vocal on.
Well, I was just watching that, and I feel for those parents. If I become governor there, I will do everything to fight critical race theory being taught to our children. This generation coming up is probably the least racist generation, the most open-minded generation in the history of our country.
That's every generation. I can't think, has there ever been a time in the United States where one generation came and they were more racist than the last one? Like from 1920 to 1960, they were like, well, in the 20s, we were not that racist. Then the 60s came around and we got really racist. Like, Like, this is better than the 60s is not a good argument. Like, yes, but the goal of every generation is to make it even better. That's the goal. Like, I thought the whole idea was you want to leave the world off better for your children. Now, I understand the Republican Party with the issue of climate change might not agree with that position in its entirety, right? They're going to, a lot of its top leadership being as old as it is, not that the Democratic top leadership is particularly young at the moment with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, will be dead before we see the full brunt of the effects of climate change with climate refugees, the loss of territory, etc. Not mentioned, and from a geopolitical perspective, the effect on military effectiveness. But the whole point of every generation is to leave the world off better than the last generation. So that statement means literally nothing.
You know, we don't need to set them back and try to teach them.
Chuck Schumer's only 70. Ah, yes, only 70 years old. A true young buck.
Racism. And so I am totally 100% against that. The reason I'm running for governor is because I'm standing up. I don't like what's happening in our state. It's been horrible, the decline of our state.
You don't have to stand up. You can sit back down if you want, honestly.
And I'm proud of those people down there that you know what, they're standing up. They're trying to make a difference. And I encourage that.
Yeah, I want to get to some of the news headlines, but real quickly, just bumper sticker it for me. What is Caitlyn Jenner's political brand? Because you don't have a political track record. We can't see how you would vote on policy. So what's your brand?
And that's a good thing. I am an outsider. I totally agree with you. I am a total outsider.
The thing is, even though she doesn't have a political brand outside of maybe like trans issues, which she's now trashing her record on that, she's already flip-flopped on the issue of trans women in girl sports. As somebody who was talking about how she wants to participate in women's golf tournaments, as somebody who says stuff like that, while also trying to restrict young trans people from participating in sports where it's the most important time for people to participate in sports at a younger level, to develop not only the social stuff that I've already talked about and the extracurricular activities, but also like healthy living, which is super important as well.
Okay, and running as a Republican in the bluest of blue states. But I go in there, I don't owe one special interest in Sacramento. I don't owe them one favor. I'm not the one who gave us the highest tax rates in the nation. I'm not the one who put 21.2 million words of regulations on the people and the businesses of California.
You just said like a high number of regulations, right? You just said a high number, right? That's a big number. Wow. Tell me what's wrong with that big number. Like, let's get to specifics. Instead of naming like a big number of regulations, because if you go into the specifics of these regulations, it's going to be like, hey, you can't reuse screws when making cars because that could cause car crashes, or each car might need like some safety measures, or the water can't be literal poison if you're going to sell it to our children. These regulations are in place and many times to protect us. So if you're going to call out regulations, the smart thing to do is call out the specific regulations, not just say, wow, this is a big list of laws. I could do that with anything, right? I could be like, you want to see how big the government's gotten, and then show you just a huge stack of paper and say, these are all the laws that were passed in this country in the last, 50 years. And then we go through the laws, and the first one's like, people should not be able to own nukes. If you are a water company, you cannot poison the water. Bridges must be structurally sound to this degree if we're going to drive on them to stop people from dying. We need to have companies need to combat air pollution. It's going to be stuff like that. So you got to name specific regulations. You can't just say, oh my God, here's the big number.
They did that. I'm coming in as an outsider. I consider myself kind of a compassionate disruptor.
Okay.
I want to go in there and I want to shake the system up. Yeah. We cannot continue to go down the road that we're going. We're losing the state. 18,000 companies have left the state of California, and they're continuing to leave.
Well, here's one of those issues that as you step into the fray, it's on fire.
Again, it's a big number. Didn't propose it like next to how many companies have come to California. When you said those companies, do you mean the entire, like all of a brand has left? Or do you mean like one shop? It's like, you got to put it into perspective.
I want to turn now to the crime that's surging in many of America's cities, including several in your home state of California. In Los Angeles, homicides are up 127%. Shootings up 58% year to year. What is your plan to make California safe?
Well, first of all, I live in Los Angeles County, and our chief of the Sheriff's Department, Alex Villan.
By the way, just showing you, right-wingers coming in my chat right now like, Caitlyn Jenner isn't a woman. This is the party that she's trying to appeal to, where 20 to 50% of her base off the bat are going to say, I think you're disgusting. Screw you for being LGBT. Again, the Republican Party is not a place for LGBT people of any stripe. Log cabin Republicans are a joke who's willing to throw the rest of their community under the bus for economic benefit of themselves. Point blank, period. There might be one or two Republicans on the local level somewhere that might be LGBTQ plus friendly. But when it comes to national level politics and much of state level, and the vast majority of state level politics, it's not. And every time I have somebody come in here when I'm covering Caitlyn Jenner's policies or her speeches or anything like that, and I see the type of vitriol from the right, from Republicans in my chat, not all of them, but at least half of the base, it sends the message intended to LGBT people. Don't align yourself with a party which seeks your destruction. It's near suicidal behavior.
In a way, just lowered the standards for concealed carry. I saw the interview that he did, and it was almost like he...
So her proposal to lowering crime rates, which I don't know where they got the numbers from, but let's pretend for a moment that Fox News is 100% not just doing the California is a liberal hellscape for a moment. How is lowering the standard for concealed carry going to lower the crime rate? You can make a Second Amendment argument if we were talking about the Second Amendment, but lowering the standard for concealed carry has not been shown to lower crime rates. I have seen no evidence to show that whatsoever. So this feels like a pivot into Second Amendment when it's not the question. And the number is a complete lie. Well, let's see. Thank you once again. Fluff coming in the clutch. Crime rates in Los Angeles County from 1985 to 2019. Well, this is just in Los Angeles County. We would need something for like all of California, correct? She's not running to just be governor of Los Angeles.
He didn't want to do it, but you know what he said? People have to protect themselves nowadays. Because you know what? Our poor police force has been so demonized over the years. I support our law enforcement 100%. In fact, I go down the street and I see a police officer. I give them a thumbs up. I shake their hand. I say, hey, thank you for your service. I try to do everything that I can. And I support them. But crime, we have to stop what we're doing right now. It's obviously not working.
A sheriff from Montana on just moments ago, and he said, you know, much like we used to say as military children after the Vietnam War, we were saying...
Here it is for chat, and this feels like a pivot, but like, please, we're trying to stay on topic. Democrats aren't any better. They push gender studies BS. I don't know what's particularly wrong with gender studies and seeing how gender interacts with society. Critical race theory. Okay, again, we just did a segment on critical race theory. Don't know how that relates to the Second Amendment or the crime rates or the policies Caitlyn Jenner's talked about before she like just slid past critical race theory, or the fact that the Republican Party doesn't like LGBT people. Can someone explain to me how me saying, hey, hello, I think the Republican Party is not nice to LGBT people? Well, the Democrats, critical race theory. What? After adjusting for state and year, there was no significant association between shifts from restrictive to non-restrictive carry legislation on violent crime and public health indicators. Oh, that's what you were trying to show me. Thank you. Adjusting further for poverty and unemployment did not significantly influence the results. Okay, as I said, and Fluff is somebody I trust a lot on this. We can bring this up. It's from Science Direct. Concealed carry, open carry, that's not going to lower crime rates. Point blank, period. Don't know why, when asked how you're going to lower crime, she would say open carry, concealed carry. If you want to make it a a civil liberties issue or a Second Amendment issue, fine, make it that. But there's no evidence that I've seen up to this point that I can lower like crime. And in fact, I'll put this in chat. I might link it under the video, showing that once again, it doesn't lower crime.
You know, give Dad a hug, my father who fought. And he said, give a cop a hug when you see him. They may need that.
I totally agree. My dad was in World War II. He landed at Omaha Beach.
Wow.
A great patriot and buried at Arlington. And I'm honestly, I'm running because of how that generation, the greatest generation, stood up. I want to stand up too.
I want to talk about the border.
Okay.
I mean, fortunately, you even have a wall in your state. I don't know if anybody's told the vice president because we can't get her to go to the border. But
yes.
Illegal immigrants continuing to cross into border states now, including California, as the Biden administration is now giving a second chance to those who were denied asylum under President Trump. Meanwhile, VP Kamala Harris, just as I said, it's 91 days as the borders are without visiting the border. Your take?
As governor, I would close our California.
Is there something special about 91 days? Okay.
California border. I would use on state land, use state funds to close the border. We have to have a control of our.
Guys, it has been about 200 days since I stepped in front of a Chipotle. I mean, like, the thing is, like, I'm on the environmental board. Could somebody make like an argument? It's been 110 days since Dylan stepped foot in a forest. Okay. Can you like connect that to anything besides just this is a number?
Immigration system. And as you know, just a couple of weeks ago, the Supreme Court said in a 9-0 decision that anybody who comes into this country illegally under the TAPS program, the temporary protected status, they are not eligible for citizenship. They have to leave the country and come in.
God, I can't believe I have to. Okay, this is the last time I'm responding for chat for this entire segment. Republicans support any group of people who stands for the Constitution. Okay, so I assume you're against all of this legislation from Republicans on the state level, which they're Republicans, so that's kind of confusing to me that since they're supposed to stand for the Constitution, who are specifically proposing unconstitutional legislation to restrict healthcare access to trans youth, which has been ruled by the Supreme Court very recently, which is conservative dominated, to be unconstitutional. Or what about the Republican senator from Montana? A few Republican legislators, actually, who have proposed a amendment to the Constitution to ban flag burning. I question the Republican Party's commitment to the Constitution. Now I'm going to stop responding to chat so we can get through this segment.
Right way. If anybody is in the state of California and they're here illegally and get arrested, they're gone. Out with the bad. But there's a lot of great immigrants in Southern California. Great people. I know so many of them.
Who are here legally.
That are here legally. Some maybe not, but they've been here for so long.
So are you for
and they are
amnesty?
a vibrant part of our economy. They're a vibrant part of our state. And
So, Caitlyn, are
they
you
they need to get legal protection to be able to stay.
So you're for amnesty?
In those cases, yes. If they've been here, they've been good citizens, I am all for them. I want them to stay.
We've got to wrap. Last quick question. You know, governors are held to a different standard, perhaps, than we've ever seen before. I mean, people are looking at them more than ever. Could that person be president? And maybe they always have, but it seems like we're focused. Many of them are Democrats.
Okay, slow down, okay? She has never won a political office in her life, and you're asking now if she can be president? Calm down, okay? Step back. Slow down, okay? She has never, ever been a... Why? Reply Attacks, thank you so much for the 10 gifted tier 1s. And Coppermine Colas, thank you so much for the 10 gifted tier 1s as well. We've been at a lot of kind people in chat today. Oh my goodness. A lot of support for the channel today that I really deeply appreciate. I'm happy I didn't stop streaming.
Andrew Cuomo here in New York, and all of the multiple investigations.
Right.
And you've got
3 different Okay, now I'm being sent 3. By the way, okay, I'm looking at the numbers they posted for California crime that I was just sent by another person who's very intelligent on the issue. The statistics that they said there was like 157% increase in 1 year. I mean, we kind of knew just by seeing that ridiculous number it was not true because, you know, hyperbole in news media, of course. Fake news, you might call it. It was incorrect. I have 3 separate sources here I'm looking at. One from CJCJ, PPIC, and the American Health Rankings.org, showing that these crime statistics are completely inaccurate.
Got Gavin Newsom in your state. You're running again. What would Americans say about Caitlyn Jenner in terms of presidential sort of acumen?
I am a Republican, a proud Republican, but I'm an inclusive Republican.
Would you
and I
run?
think that's what, and I think that's what the Republican Party is
She
missing.
hasn't even won
because
in
I'm
California.
Because I have conservative
Why are
economic
you
values.
asking her?
It's worked throughout history. Less taxes, less
She's
regulations.
not going
it
to
works.
win.
But on the social side, I'm inclusive to everybody. I don't want to be put in that little box of you're a Republican. Okay. I'm on the outside. I want the Republican Party to come to me because we need to be more inclusive to everybody. And that's what I'm running on.
All right. Caitlyn Jenner, we will see how it all turns out.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Actually, I'm enjoying it, Harris. It's been fun.
Well, and it's broken in your state. You say you can fix it. They are
so
looking.
fun.
They've got high expectations for you.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
don't have any
It's been
expectations
It was
whatsoever.
great to see you. Good to meet
Thanks.
you.
Good seeing you.